This is why I can no longer sleep with the lights off. One of my followers named Georgia just told me her haunted apartment experience, and the ending of the story literally sent chills down my spine because it could happen to any one of us. Before I begin, if you have a horror story that you want me to read, go ahead and follow my Instagram that's linked in my bio and DM me your story. So Georgia told me she's 25 and lives in a small apartment outside of the city. And for the longest time, she told me she thought she found a great deal on this apartment. The place was modern, spacious, and surprisingly cheap for its location. Everyone kept telling her that it was too good to be true, and maybe, looking back, it was. Because now, Georgia told me she cannot sleep in her apartment without every single light being on. She told me she's not crazy, she's not superstitious, but after what she experienced in that place, she will never let herself be in the dark ever again. And here are the 3 encounters why. So encounter number 1 was the whisper in the hallway. She told me it started off small, just enough to make her uneasy. About a week after moving in, Georgia woke up to the sound of someone whispering. It wasn't loud, but it was clear enough to tell that it wasn't one of the pipes or coming from the neighbor next door. It was coming from the hallway right outside her bedroom door. At first, she told me she thought someone had broke in. Her heart was pounding as she got out of bed because did she not lock the door? She slowly cracked the door open, but all she saw was that the hallway light was off. The apartment, pitch black except for the glow on her phone screen. She told me the whisper stopped. She turned on the light, stepped into the hall, but nothing was there. No one was there, but she told me the air felt heavy and cold, like someone had just been standing right next to her. Encounter number 2 was the figure in the corner. A few nights later, she woke up to the sound of something moving in the kitchen. She checked the time and it was 2:17 a.m. Her first thought was maybe she left the window open and maybe an animal got inside. But when she got up to check, the window was closed. It was locked tight. But all of her silverware was scattered across the kitchen floor. She picked it up one piece at a time, trying to calm herself down. But that's when Georgia told me she saw something in the reflection of the microwave door. Standing right behind her in the living room was a figure. A dark human-shaped shadow, and she spun around quickly. But once again, the room was empty. She told me her hands were shaking so badly she dropped the fork that she was holding. It hit the floor with a sound that felt like thunder in the silence. She told me she didn't sleep for the rest of that night. Now, the final encounter number 3 was the hand underneath the door. After that encounter, Georgia started leaving the lights on at night. Bathroom light, kitchen light, bedroom lamp, all of it. It made her feel safer, like maybe she could keep whatever it was away. But this was the night that broke her. Georgia told me she was lying in bed scrolling on her phone when all of a sudden she heard it again, that faint whispering. This time, it wasn't in the hallway, it was closer. It was right outside her bedroom door. She told me her body went cold and she turned on her phone flashlight toward the door. And that's when she saw a shadow shift under the door. Then slowly, she swears she saw a hand, thin, grayish with fingers too long, slide out from underneath the door, that little space. She told me it was gripping the bottom of the door. She told me she froze out of fear, unable to move. And then, as suddenly as it appeared, the hand slipped back under the door and was gone. The next morning, Georgia told me she packed a bag and went straight to her friend's house. She told herself she had enough, but also needed answers. So she did what anyone would do. She looked up her apartment building. What she found made her stomach turn and even gave me chills. The building had been constructed less than 10 years ago. Before that, the land had been a part of an old cemetery that was relocated when developers bought the property. But relocated didn't mean what she thought. Articles from the time mentioned that several graves had been left behind, bodies that were too decomposed to move, or records too old to trace. That was when everything made sense. The cold spots, the whispers, the shadows. That's why the rent was way too low. Georgia told me she went back only long enough to grab the rest of her things. And now, even in her new apartment that she moved into, she still has to sleep with every light on. She told me darkness feels different now. It feels alive. Almost as if there's something still waiting in it, in the darkness, for her.
Tell me a ghost story that sounds completely unbelievable but is entirely true.
I bought my house in 2014 and almost immediately stuff started happening. It started with, I would smell like fresh cigarette smell in the kitchen from 8 to 9 in the morning. And it wasn't every day, but it was a couple times a month maybe. Now, the former owner of this house did used to smoke inside, and I know that because you can always tell if you're in a house that it used to have a former smoker living in it, but they made a real big effort to clean it. I don't smoke in the house, and it was fresh-smelling cigarette smell. Every time I moved furniture around, there would be noises. It's the only way I can explain it. and I would have a chandelier in my front hall that would start swinging. In 2016, I was in my office, and all of a sudden I heard a female's voice, an older voice, sounded like my mom, saying, hello, hello, hello. And I heard it, but my dog Marco also heard it, and he started running to the kitchen, like the threshold between the kitchen and the living room, and just barking. In 2017, there was a hurricane that came through Houston, and I lost power. And it was August, and it was tremendously hot outside, except for in the kitchen underneath the threshold. So actually one night I moved my lazy boy and underneath the threshold, and I slept because that was actually decent. And my buddy Ryan came over, and he's like, it's so hot in here. And I said, not here. And I led him to the lazy boy, and he's like, what the hell? It's like 65. I said, I know, it's weird, right? But then what happened in 2018 and then later in 2021 was bizarre. In 2018, my brother dropped my nephew and his little friend over at my house for the afternoon. And when he walked in, the chandelier in my front entrance started swinging. And my brother said, wow, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. I've never seen it like that before. A couple hours later, I'm in my office, and my nephew is like throwing the football around the kitchen and the living room with his little friend. And all of a sudden, I heard my nephew start screaming this like blood-curdling scream. So I run in there, and I was like, what's going on, buddy? What's going on? And he says, there's an old lady statue staring at me. And I was like, what are you talking about? I knew what he was talking about. I knew exactly what he was talking about, but he would not have known because I'd never shared any details of the house with even my brother. What he said is he saw like a Greek statue, kind of is how he described it. And it was an old lady, and it was staring. Things would remain calm for about 3 years until 2021. There was a power outage because there was a freeze in Texas. My sister-in-law's family was staying with me, and her sister had a 6-year-old daughter. They were sitting in the living room, and the daughter says, what about the gray lady? And I said, who's the gray lady? And everybody was there, and they're like, who's the gray lady? And she said, the lady in the kitchen. Now, I've never actually, other than hearing the voice, I've never seen anything. Apparently, only kids have experienced that part of it. And it's so bizarre because I hate haunted houses. I really do. But I don't think she wants anything from me. I really don't. But I think she might like kids. My dog Marco seems fine with her too, now that I guess he met her a few years ago and he doesn't really freak out.
I received an email titled, My First Time Seeing a Ghost. So let's get into it. The story comes from someone who would like to remain anonymous, and for obvious reasons, I'm going to respect that. The person who sent me this email says that they have not experienced anything paranormal up until this point. But her parents were out of town for 3 days, and during that time, her aunt was watching her and her siblings. During this experience, she is downstairs in the basement watching TV alone. Her younger sisters are upstairs with their aunt, when all of a sudden, she starts to feel like something is watching her. And we all know that feeling, especially the ones who have experienced something like this, where you can feel just like a set of eyes peeking around a corner. And she specifically says that she could feel this presence watching her from the bathroom, which was near the kitchen. Since she was so young at the time, she really didn't think anything of it. When I say young, I literally mean like 8 or 9 years old. But she tries to continue watching TV, but this feeling is just getting worse and worse, to the point where she is checking the opening to the bathroom very frequently. It's so bad that she decided to get up and go. She got a glass of water, and in the meantime, she checked the bathroom, only to see nothing. So she gets back to the living room and sits back down on the couch like, I have no idea what's going on. The feeling has done nothing but get worse and worse and worse. She doesn't feel this thing move or shift in the room. It is still looking at her from the bathroom. And at this point, she knows that there is something there. She finally decides to look into the bathroom from the living room. And she sees 2 big eyes staring back at her. And it appears to be a little girl. The person who sent me this is totally freaked out at this point, because not only is this little girl staring back at her, she is also smiling at her. So she drops everything, runs upstairs, and by the time she reaches the top of the stairs, she is completely winded. And her aunt asks her, why are you so tired? Why are you so out of breath? The person who sent me this said that she didn't want to scare her little sisters or her aunt, so she didn't say anything. But when her parents got back, she explained to them what had happened to her. I guess their neighbor was overhearing this conversation, because the neighbor chimed in and said, yeah, there is a little girl that walks around your guys' house. Her parents still say that they don't believe her, but she knows what she saw with her own 2 eyes. What's weird is she never saw that little girl again. I have no idea what I would do in this situation personally, but I think running away was like the best option. But anyways, that's gonna do it for me. Stay tuned for more ghost stories.
One of the most bone-chilling Reddit stories I've read yet. So this Redditor said, once when he was 12, his mother told him that she was leaving and going out of town for a few days, leaving him no phone, just a landline. Well, when the day came for his mother to arrive, he hears a knock at the door. Hearing his mother call him downstairs to open the door. Their family dog, who loved his mom to death, came running downstairs to greet her at the door. Well, this dog actually ended up running away from the door all the way back upstairs. The kid never went to go open the door, only to find out that right after this happened, his mom ended up calling the boy off the home phone, saying that she'd actually be a day late. So who was that at the door? You tell me.
I have a couple of paranormal experiences and I want to tell them since Halloween's coming up. Get ready with me while I do so. Beginning of 2020. I'm staying at my friend's place. It's late. It's like 2-3 a.m. The witching hour. I'm on the top bunk bed and I hear tapping. Like that. I'm not thinking anything of it, but I keep hearing it. I text my friend's brother and I'm like, hey, is the cat with you in the hall or is it in the room? He comes and knock, opens the door and he's like, hey, the cat's with me, are you alright? Yeah, no, I just heard knocking and I thought the cat was in here. And then he was like, oh, that's normal. We stay in the middle of the jungle. It wasn't the middle of the jungle, but it was like their location has been cut down for it. So I'm like, oh, what does that mean? There's a lot of ghosts and hantu around. I'm like, oh, okay, what does that mean with the knocking? And he's like, did the knocking sound close or far away? And I was like, both, actually. It sounded like it was really near, the impact of it was close, but it sounded really far away. And he was like, oh, okay, that means the ghost is near. I was like, cool. Some more, the knocking came from behind a mirror. That mirror is glued to the wall, and that wall is the back of the house. Okay, that's cool. Thanks for telling me that. He's like, do you want me to leave the cat in here? I'm like, yeah, please. Thank you. And then he goes off. But I'm not feeling too scared, but I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. I'm not too scared of, paranormal things. I have more fear of humans and what they could possibly do to me. I then go on to just, kind of hang out with the cat, at the bottom bunk, and I see it watching something in the mirror. Going up to the mirror, scratching it, watching, hopping around the room, and then it scratches to get out of the room. So I'm, okay, I'll let you out. And I don't really think anything of it. I go to sleep, but it was really hard because I started hearing whispering in my ear. I was trying to go to sleep, and I heard it sounded like my light died. It sounded kind of high-pitched like a kid. It took me a while to finally go to sleep because I heard that whispering. But it also kind of sounded like singing, but I couldn't make out any words. That's the most paranormal thing I've felt happen to me. But I've had other instances. I used to be really into ghosts and trying to hunt them down. My dad used to own a hostel. It was one of the workaways there that I would download these apps on his phone, and there'll be ghost radios and things like that, and we'd try and talk to ghosts. He was really fun. He reminded me of Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Yeah, I've been a little haunted bitch. I believe in these things, but I feel if you fear them or if you have a sense of weakness, that's when they target. I don't think they have bad intentions. If you suspect that of them, you're gonna look for the bad intentions, it's with people. It's if you expect someone's gonna be a bad person, you're gonna overanalyze everything they do, and even if they say nothing that's offensive, you're gonna find a way to be offended by it. I feel it's kind of the same thing. Do you guys have any ghost stories? I love hearing ghost stories. Listen to this one podcast called Ghost Hunts. So fun and fresh. They are so funny. If you have any ghost stories, tell me. I want to know.
Do you believe in ghosts? I want to tell you a story that happened to me probably a good 5, 6, maybe 7 years ago. I can't remember exactly. But this really did make me start to believe she has her own story in this apartment where she got really, really freaked out about things moving on their own when she said there's no way they should have moved. But me, I remember there was a day that I was in my room, in my bathroom specifically, and my boyfriend at the time was sitting on the bed. So he's on the bed, I'm in the bathroom, in the bathtub, and I swear to God, y'all, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the sink that was beside the bathtub turned on and just started gushing water. And he was nowhere near it. I was nowhere near it. Maybe there's some plumbers in the chat who will just tell me this is something that can happen. Something busted in the sink and made it turn on. But I never forgot that moment, and it just really, really freaked me the fuck out. It freaked me the fuck out. On top of my friend who was living in the same apartment, having her own little story, kind of similar. Something moving on its own. So, yeah. I believe in ghosts.
Should we show them the older homestead? real quick?
Yeah, let's go. As you know.
No, it's not. No, it's not. Was that you?
Yeah, that's on either side.
It went to both.
Yeah.
Alright guys, we're back with another story time because this one is crazy. I don't know if any of y'all believe in ghosts, but personally, I didn't until this happened to me and my family. So I have an older sister, and this was actually her old room, and I now moved into here because, of course, she was the older sister and she had the bigger room, and she moved out, so I moved in. Now, I'm going to show you guys the picture of what I'm talking about at the end of the video, but just listen. So at the time, my sister was 19 years old, and she was laying on her bed, and she was taking selfies, I don't know, probably sending them to her boyfriend, or whatever the heck she was doing. She was sending them to someone, and she takes a picture of herself, and she sends it to the guy, and the guy texts her back and says, "Who's that in the back?" Now, mind you, my sister was in her room by herself, in this room. Let me get the angle. So she was in her room laying on her bed just like this, with the closet like that in the background. And the guy responds, "Who's that in the back?" And obviously nobody's back there, so she was like, "Nobody is there." And guys, she clicked on the picture, and all I remember, she came downstairs screaming, crying, and she ended up leaving and sleeping at her friend's house. Let me show you the closet. So this is the closet. It literally ends right there. Like, it stops here. So, like, even if, like, somebody tried to get in the closet, like, there's nowhere to go. Like, you can physically see here. So here's the picture. Do you see what's wrong with the picture? Let me zoom in. That is clearly a face in the closet. So if you didn't believe in ghosts before, I don't know what to tell you now. I don't have any younger siblings. I don't have anyone else who would do that. My dad was downstairs with me and my mom, and my sister was just in her room. So if you don't believe in ghosts, then you guys tell me what's going on here.
Do you think Bloody Mary is scary? In Japan, they say if you knock 3 times on the bathroom stall, she might just answer. This is the terrifying legend of Hanako-san. According to Japanese folklore, she's the ghost of a young girl who haunts the 3rd stall of school bathrooms. She's usually described as a schoolgirl with bobbed hair, and she wears a red skirt. To summon her, you have to go to the girls' bathroom on the 3rd floor and knock on the 3rd stall 3 times and ask, "Hanako-san, are you there?" Then you will hear a little girl reply, "Yes, I am." If you open the stall, a bloody hand or Hanako-san herself will reach out and grab you and drag you into the toilet, which some believe leads straight to hell, and you will never be seen or heard from again. Her origin story changes depending on who you ask. Some say she died in a bombing raid during World War II while she was playing hide and seek with her friends. Others say she was murdered by a parent or a stranger inside the school. But the darkest version of them all is that she was bullied so badly to the point where she took her own life in the school bathroom. Honestly, I think this one might be scarier than Bloody Mary, but what do you guys think? And seriously, what's with all these ghosts in public bathrooms?
Okay, so I'm pretty sure I just saw a ghost. Normally, I'm reacting to other people that witness the paranormal, but lately it has been happening to me, and then on Monday, something very scary happened, and I am not okay. So I was in a pretty, kind of sketchy area, and I was walking towards the subway, and I saw a lady sitting on, a park bench, and I just saw her from the corner of my eye. She looked really pale, and then she had a big red mark on her face that I could see. So I turned and I looked at her. I looked away and I looked back, and it looked like she had a bullet shot right through her head. Immediately I knew that it was a ghost and that she was not alive, and she was just staring like she was not real. So I didn't want to stop and freak out and bring attention to this matter, so I kind of played it off like I didn't see her, because what else do I do? As soon as a ghost knows that you've seen them, they know that they can come to you, right? Okay, and follow for part 2.
So here's the story about the time a ghost followed me home. I'll probably have my parents put their input in because they were here and experienced the whole thing. So I'm a YouTuber, and most of my videos are me exploring the most haunted places in the world. So my friend and I, we were going to a lot of these haunted places filming consistently. I don't know where we went, but it was either the Queen Mary or I think the Mission in San Juan Capistrano. Not sure which one, but we were there prior to this happening. So her and I were on our way to the Hotel del Coronado to film another haunted video. And I receive a call from my parents freaking out. I've never seen my dad freaked out like this. He was like, you need to stop with this ghost shit. You need to come home. You can't do this anymore. And obviously I'm very confused. So he explains what happened, and it was insane. And I'm posting part 2 right now, so you don't have to wait.
Alright, I'm scared. This TikTok creator, who calls himself Jim Bob, and I'll go ahead and I'll tag him below, tells a story about the time that he worked at a morgue. And if this would have happened to me, my soul would have left my body. So he says that he worked at a morgue for about 10 years, and this is the scariest thing that he saw. He says that his job was to clean up the body, clean up the face, make it look presentable for their family to come identify. And this one body, he noticed that her eye was twitching. So he goes, he lifts her eyelid, and there is a maggot in her eye. So he says that he's trying to remove it, and it's literally trying to embed itself even further into her eye. So he grabs tweezers and is concentrating on trying to remove this maggot. And he says that he's about an inch away from her face. And he says that her mouth slowly opened as far as it could go. Like that. So he freaks out. He steps back, and then the ugliest noise comes out, kind of like, oh hell no. So he runs out, goes and gets his boss, explains what happened. They come back, and he says that everything was back to normal, and that his boss didn't believe him, and she sent him home. Again, he worked there for 10 years, and he never went back after she sent him home. He was done. What would you do if you were to see something like this? I'm telling you, my soul evacuated immediately. What do you guys think?
Here's a true ghost story for you that'll leave you chilled to the bone. An elderly gentleman now in his 70s was telling me about this one. It happened to him when he was in his teenage years. As a child, he would often hear his mother and grandmother speaking about a murder that happened many years before, but when he'd walk into the room, they'd suddenly hush up. After pressing his ear to the door many times, he learned that a young girl had been murdered in that very house. Apparently, she had been babysitting during the Victorian period, and man had broken into the home and brutally murdered her. He did recall other people in the house mentioning ghosts. However, again, as soon as he would enter the room, the conversation would hush up and his mum would tell him it's just a load of nonsense, pay no mind. That was until the age of around 16. He was staying at grandma's alone for the weekend while she was on a trip away. She pre-told him that a young woman would be coming round to professionally clean the kitchen tiles. So, after taking a long bath upstairs, he was rather surprised when he entered the lounge and found the young woman already sat on the couch waiting for him. It didn't really faze him too much initially. She seemed friendly enough. Perhaps her and his grandmother were very close and she let herself in. Midway between their exchange of conversation, it suddenly dawned on him the front door had been deadbolt locked. He then got the intense feeling something felt very off about this young woman. She seemed to be confused by basic conversation and in a slight daze. But as the two conversed, they were suddenly interrupted by a loud knock on the front door. He excused himself and went to answer. A black-haired girl around the age of 19 was behind the front door. "Hello," she smiled. "I'm here to clean your grandmother's kitchen tiles." A strange realization suddenly washed over him. If she was indeed the girl who was there to clean, who on earth was sat on the couch? Making his excuses, he ran back into the living room. The door had previously been closed behind him, but was now empty. To his surprise, the position in which the girl had been sat on the couch was depressed in, and he slowly watched it rise by itself before his eyes. As the real cleaning girl did her job, he meticulously searched the house. Perhaps this girl was some kind of intruder wanting to burgle the property, but she was nowhere to be found. Eventually, when the job was done, he ran back to his mother's house a few roads down to relay the bizarre circumstances. Her reply sent shivers down his spine. "Well, I suppose you're old enough to know now," she said. This was when he first learnt of the murder firsthand. Apparently that poor girl had been strangled to death in the lounge in the late 1800s. Ever since, she had been known to haunt the house, particularly the lounge. Now, this property was demolished in the 1980s, but right until that point, the old man told me he kept connections with those who lived in the house, and the ghostly murdered girl had always been seen. So, maybe now that the house is no longer, she has moved on.
So my grandmother works in a morgue, and it's very common for random ghost things to happen. It's usually something pretty benign, like so-and-so in drawer 7 staring at the wall over there. It's only ever the ghosts of people whose bodies are currently in the basement, as long as they're in the basement, and as soon as they are laid to rest, they move on. Move things around, they hang out with their families during the horrible process that it is to lose a loved one, and they usually pass on. Usually. Occasionally they'll have these stinkers that stick around longer than they need to, just to move folders around, move coffee cups, pour coffee cups out, move flowers around, move caskets where they're not supposed to be. And occasionally, parts of things go missing. It's actually a big problem in morgues all over the country. Just parts of people that shouldn't go missing, and do all the time. But, you know, I can't really blame the ghost too much. If I was haunting a morgue, I would certainly move dead bodies around. Because why not?
What the fuck was that? Bro!
What's going on around you?
I don't know. I'm frozen. I am frozen. Did the window break?
If you're easily spooked, don't watch this. Back again with another real ghost story. This one's sent to me by a follower named Heather who lives in Southwest Virginia, and she's had some weird ass experiences in her house. This house is an old school cattle farm. It was built in 1900, and Heather's landlord is the grandchild of the original builder. She said as soon as they moved in, things were just off. The first thing she remembers is that her 5-year-old son was constantly seeing a man in an Abraham Lincoln hat, and he was talking about this a lot. So she's like, hey, if it doesn't scare you, don't be afraid, but if it does, don't show it that you're afraid. Meanwhile, her 7-year-old daughter is in her room saying that she keeps seeing a woman who's been badly burned, and she had a phantom voice whisper in her ear, I am here. And this is all within the first week. One day, she's dropping her son off at school, and one of his teachers is the niece of the landlord. She mentions to her, hey, he's been telling me that he's seeing a guy in our house who's wearing an Abraham Lincoln hat. And the landlord's niece looks at her and says, oh my God, that gave me chills. Your landlord's grandfather, the original builder of the home, always wore an Abraham Lincoln style hat. So the son was actually seeing the original owner of the home. Things after this start to pick up at the house a little more. She said one day her husband and his nephew were sitting in the living room watching TV. The nephew's like, "What's Heather doing in the closet under the stairs?" That closet is storage. He swears he saw someone that looked just like Heather staring back at him from inside that closet. But it wasn't her. As the years go by, they're hearing voices in empty rooms, seeing shadows that don't belong to anybody, and they're constantly smelling coffee and cigarette smoke, which Heather said reminds her of her grandmother. Fast forward 13 years in 2022. Heather's a grandmother now, and her daughter is coming to the house to pick up her baby. And there's like this overgrown wood pile that she parks next to. She goes to walk into the house, and she hears her toddler's voice calling to her from that area. She's like, "Why is my kid out here?" And she starts looking around. She doesn't see anything because there was no one there. The toddler was inside sleeping. A few months later, Heather's son hears his older sister's voice, who doesn't live at this home anymore, calling to him from this overgrown woodpile area. So they full on have a mimic problem in this house. And for whatever reason, it keeps mimicking the children, which upsets me so much. And the last thing that Heather shared with me didn't happen in the house, but it was freaky. She said that she was in the hospital in Tennessee giving birth to one of her children, and she was dozing off in her hospital room alone, and all of a sudden she feels somebody grab her ankles and start yanking her down the bed. Which I've had dreams like this before where I feel like I'm kind of being slowly pulled, but when I wake up, I've never actually been moved. Heather said she was actually moved from the pillow further down the mattress. If you like this story, hit the follow button. And if you have ever lived in a haunted house and have a story that you'd like to share, please send us to the email in my bio. Bye!